And we're live. So good evening, all Parker Radio Association fans of the Feather. Welcome to the May edition of the PRA Elmer Night. We're glad that you're here. Here in the studio, we got a bunch of PRA veterans, and we're going to be talking all things field day tonight, as well as any questions you may have in the chat room. So while you're here tonight, make sure that you not only subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also make sure you hit the like button. We want to make sure that you like these videos that we have going as well. So again, a lot of great stuff tonight. We have a handful of people here tonight, so we'll do some introductions. Leading us off, Elizabeth, N1RDH. Elizabeth, good evening.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Elmer YouTube Live tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'll pass it back to you, Dan.
All right, Elizabeth, thanks. Glad you're here. Our presenter tonight, Paul, AC5S. We'll throw it over to you, Paul. Good evening.
Hey, Dan, Elizabeth, and everyone else on the Elmer Night tonight on YouTube Live. Wow, hard to believe that we're just a few weeks away from Field Day, and what an exciting Field Day it's going to be. We've been kind of reminiscing here in the background before we came on the air live, and tell you what, exciting stuff. And this is our premier event. I mean, if there is an event that the Parker Radio Association calls the premier event, well, this is it coming up in a few weeks. So I better quit talking. There's other people that have input. But anyway, good to see everybody. Back to net control.
All right, Paul. Thanks again. Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better. This is absolutely the premier event for our organization each year. And not to discount any of the other events that we have, but certainly Field Day is something very, very special for our group. And boy, it's a lot of fun. Kick it over to Justin, AE2L. Justin, good evening. We'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Dan, and thanks for taking the net. Good evening to everyone here on the Elmer Night. I know it's not a net. We're just having fun with all that. And, yeah, it's good to see everybody, and I'm looking forward to talking about Field Day. And for all of you watching, certainly interested in what your questions are about Field Day. And if you've been to Field Days, maybe throw out in the chat if you have been to a Field Day before, so we get a sense of who knows what's up with Field Day. I know I had no idea what it was all about, and now I wouldn't miss it. So looking forward to talking about Field Day. Back to you, Dan.
All right, Justin. Yeah, it's something pretty special. So, whether you're a veteran ham and you've done dozens and dozens of field days, or this is your very first field day, we're going to talk about some of that tonight, and hopefully we'll give you some insight into what to expect, so that maybe your learning curve is shortened just a little bit. But the big thing on anything related to not only the PRA, but in particular on Field Day, we want this to be a very, very fun event. And heaven forbid, you might actually learn something. There hasn't been a Field Day yet that I have not learned a couple new tricks and hints. So some good stuff coming up there. John, N4SJW, I know he's in the studio. I don't know if he has any video or not. John, good evening. We'll throw it over to you. Or maybe we won't, because I don't hear John.
He's the only one that didn't show up for the the stage test. So yeah, Mike was on.
That's what happens when you go live, just like right at the kickoff. Well, John, we'll come back to you if you're still hanging around. Last but certainly not least is Wayne, N0AD. Wayne is in the control room in the N0AD studios in Aurora, Colorado. Wayne, good evening. We'll throw it over to you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for showing up for our Elmer Night. I'm watching the comments, and everything's looking good so far. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments there. And as Dan said, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, hit the bell. And yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Dan.
All right, Wayne. Well, certainly a big kudos to Wayne, because the first night we did Elmer Night, or not Elmer Night, but the first time we did YouTube Live, I absolutely butchered the software. I mean, it was it was probably the best worst production you could have possibly seen. And thank goodness we have brain trusts and people like Wayne to keep me out of the mess and trying to multitask. So Wayne, thanks for all you're doing with this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, round of applause for that. Golf clap from Justin.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I just wish you were printing like a Mandalorian helmet or something amazing.
I know. We even got a new little toy, a little automatic leveler for the bed. So yeah, I'll definitely. We got to get a little more configuring to get it dialed in, but yeah, I'll definitely get something printing.
Very cool. Well, we'll kind of kick it around, and I'm sure between Wayne and Elizabeth, they'll be able to keep an eye on the chat room. And please, guys, if you see a really good question pop up in the chat room, make sure that you interrupt us, let us know what's happening, and we'll go from there. So what we'll do is we'll shoot it around the horn here within the studio, and talk about maybe your very first field day. What did you expect? What happened, and maybe something that you learned. And then once you share a little trip down memory lane, maybe we can talk about what a Parker Radio Association field day is like, so that our any members or any soon-to-be members that are going to be joining us for field day may have something to expect. So we'll kick it over to Elizabeth. Ladies first. Elizabeth, over to you.
Well, I won't go to the very, very first one because that was kind of non-existent for me. Paul was trying to get me to get on the radio, and I was not cooperating. So the next year, when I was licensed, you can get on the radio when you're not licensed, but when I finally got licensed, I was a tech and got on with. I specifically remember Tom, and we got in the hut. It was very cold, so we had the tarp over us and everything, and he was helping log. So I was bad at my copying skills. That's something you have to hone in, especially with net control, but your listening skills and pull that sign, their call sign, out of the pile up. That's pretty difficult. So it's definitely a learning experience. But when you have that person next to you that is helping with that, and of course you're learning on the side there, I really got excited, and then I kept going. I don't know how many hours we were making contacts, and I feel like I helped out with the numbers, but I had a really good time. And then of course it's the camaraderie. So when the dinner comes out and the fire pit is on, it's good times hanging out with everybody. It's like a family, and you guys are awesome. The Parker Radio Association has been my family now for a little over a year. So thank you for your patience with me, and I hope to pull some more people in for some great experiences. Back to you, Dan.
All right, Elizabeth. Well, boy, thanks for sharing that. And I think the one thing that you really honed in on is that it's perfectly natural to have some mic fright. And I think that is people say, oh, you get nervous before you get on the air. It is absolutely a real thing. If you've never been on ham radio and you've been thinking about it, that's the cool part about field day, is that if you're not licensed, you can come join us. We'll help you get on the air. You'll have somebody there to help coach you through, and we'll help you make your first ham radio contact, which is pretty cool to do. I remember my first one, and I think what's really important is that if you have some of that mic fright, it's okay. It is perfectly okay, because not only is everyone on this studio have gone through it, number one, but number two, I would say probably 99% of every ham radio operator absolutely goes through some level of mic fright the first time they're getting on the air, whether that's on a repeater or on HF or anything like that. So If you get the jitters before you get on the air, it's okay. We promise. It's okay, and it's perfectly natural. Next, we'll throw it over to Justin. Justin, you want to give us some insight on maybe what your first field day experience was like, and maybe what we can expect at the PRA field day?
Yeah, sounds good. Let me, I've got a couple, oh, hang on, I do this right. I'm going to share some pictures from my first field day. I don't know that all these made the website, so some are up there, but you guys all seeing AC5S there holding the lightning rod?
There he is.
Roger.
Well, yeah, so that was, we had just gotten there up to the Colorado campground and setting up antennas. So we got NI0L, who had a different call sign at the time. We have KX3DX, Dave there. We have Patrick, who was a different call sign at the time. And then, of course, AC5S there, setting up the vertical antenna, which was a fantastic antenna there at field day. And all right, let's see if I can do this correctly here. Then we got the shelter set up and started to get the station on the air, and it was very cool. This was, I think, the day before field day. We were kind of just setting everything up, seeing what was going to work, and then we got an antenna up on the air, and we got that thing going. And I remember that's where some of you might hear us talk about piercing audio, and I think Patrick was the one. We just tried out the 7300, and he said, "How guys like piercing audio?" And man, we had a lot of great audio reports on that 7300, which was brand new to the club that year. I think they just picked it up at Dayton. And so we had a lot of fun in the pre-field day. I remember working over there, made work in Spain. I mean, we set up digital stations. It was just a great time. And yeah, we had set up a little QRP digital station on a loop antenna that Wayne now owns. Great antenna. And yeah, a lot of fun, playing with different setups and just having a good time. And I remember this is when I realized that Dan thought we were there to work, because he was like, "All right, guys, we're going to get 500 Qs, and none of you can go sleep or eat or whatever until we get 500 Qs. I want to win this thing." And so then he proceeds to go off to the side and work on some contacts on a completely worthless rig. But I got to give it to him. He sat out there for like 3 hours talking to who knows who, nobody. But yeah, it was pretty fun. And I don't think he might have worked one guy with like 5 hours of trying on that alpha antenna, which didn't, maybe we just had it misconfigured, we'll say.
You can see the look of defeat or disgust that's on my face right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that was the first antenna launcher, right? That's before we built them. So I think Tom had his prototype, and we were using that the first time. Now we all have antenna launchers, and so that was a really awesome time. And this is when what I learned at my first field day was that Dan is a fine ham radio operator example of how to operate on HF, right? The filler, the 59 QRZ, just keeping the flow going in the alphabet soup that's coming in, and then just not even stopping and making sure that the logger's working well. And just Dan is a machine in a contest, and he's taught many of us how to do that, so we certainly appreciate that. And we also learned the value of having antennas further apart than this for other field days, because we couldn't actually work 2 radios at a time without really stomping on each other. So it was quite a challenge to stay on the air because we pointed them all the same direction. So we were working on getting that figured out, but lots of people, you can see this was probably pretty early on Saturday, I'd imagine, at this point. And I think the challenge you can see here is that, this one was a smaller field day. Keeping 2 stations manned was a lot of work. Always had to be on the radio or logging. And I remember at the point I realized, like, oh, wow, this goes all night. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie, passing off. And obviously, social distancing was not something we had to comply with in 2017. So in the middle of a QSO, and you're like, you have to take a bathroom break, you hand the mic over to somebody, and just awesome. And here's Dave and Ray still having fun. Now Ray's probably 4 whiskeys in at this point, but I remember exactly what he said at that point in time. It was that he had just kind of picked up and got the Dan Grady bug. That's an interesting bug to have. But I remember they were working something, and he said, "Loud and proud in Colorado," and it was just a really good time. So I just really good field day, good memories, and all you have to remember is what's written on that sheet: K0PRA 2 Alpha Colorado. This year it'll be 3 Alpha, but really good time working in through the night, and then the next day working more cues, and that was a really good time. So that was my first field day, and camping, food, good camaraderie, learning how to operate. And then I took a couple pictures of 2018 here, which was 2 field days ago. And I remember this was awesome because I've been traveling for work like nonstop. I just gotten back from a trip overseas, and so it was good to get outside and have a long weekend off. And I remember setting up antennas, and first contact we made was like Russia or something like that. And then Ralph came in and worked him right behind us. And then we moved the station. We set up a tarp. And I remember Paul and I sitting under there, AC5S and I working in a thunderstorm. Antenna worked great. We were working DX. I mean, it was the DX. This is before field day. This is like the Thursday before. We were up there a little bit early to get out of the rat race. And so anyway, it was a good time. But working in a thunderstorm, and it was like a no joke thunderstorm. It was shaking the trees, and so always good. I like to get up there a little early and have some fun. So we had a good time up there, and this was a very poor photo at night. The iPhones have clearly come a long way, but that's when really Damien and Wayne really were showing us all their, you see their satellite antenna and all the different stuff that they were doing. And I remember that field day was the field day that we unleashed the Kraken, back to back. Is it 3 times or just 2 times with the Colorado QSO party?
Twice, 2 times.
Yeah, so I remember this field day. We were working something, and I think if I remember it correctly, I handed you the mic and said, "Hey, I got to go," and then you never got off the mic. I don't think the whole rest of that night you and Damien sat, and you had never worked HF, and you guys got on there and figured it out. We were like, working through cues and keep going, keep calling, and so really good coaching team spirit where you really can rely on everybody to help you out and just get you on the air and learn some skills that you might not have ever learned before.
One thing I'd like to say on that is I remember we kept calling CQ, and we had a pileup going, and you were like, "Say QRZ," and we didn't get it and continued to keep saying CQ. We had a pileup going for 5 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah, so talk a little bit. I mean, since you're the pileup guy now, I mean, you're brand new to HF, right? You guys have just gotten on the air. Like, talk about like what it was like working a pileup for the first time at field day.
Yeah, it was, originally I sat down with Justin, and Justin was working it, and then basically gave me the mic, then he started logging, and we started working it in, and then Damien sat down with him, and he still sat there and helped us out. We had a good 4-hour pileup going on, and then I'm just looking at Dan like, any help, dude? Come on, you want to grab the mic and clear some of these? Dan grabs the mic, probably works 20 minutes, hands us back the mic, walks away, and I'm just like, all right, sweet. We just kept going. Damien is definitely going to field day this year, and yeah, looking to do the same thing. Should be a lot of fun, but yeah, it was definitely interesting, to say the least. It was a lot of fun.
And most important thing about field day is the food. Since especially we got the group meal, always got to have breakfast. And I actually remember I had those are epic breakfasts that year. I had some great breakfasts. So that was very good. Wake up and have hash browns and sausage and eggs every day. It's a good time. So yeah, but I think the most important thing about the whole thing is really just like Wayne said, we're all there for each other. It's a contest, but it's not a contest, right? We're all there to do what we want to do and show that we can do it without being at home with our fancy shacks and fancy antennas and everything. You just set it up out there, make it work, get on the air, and if it's not working, make changes. We make changes every year for the field day setup. This year we've got filters so that the 40 and the 20 and the 80 can all work independently. And so these are all lessons that you learn by trying it and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And that's the beauty, right? We're all amateurs. So, and it shows at field day, and it's a great time. And any of you that get an opportunity to have Dan show you how to own a frequency and get your elbows out when people start encroaching on you, and learning how to say things without laughing, like, "Okay, old man, say it down the log and whatever, and all the little ham radio sayings that those of you that are new to HF might be. It's just fun to watch other operators because you kind of get the sense of like how to talk on the air better if you're not as versed in it. It's an art.
Yeah, my favorite is, yeah, man, you must be a dentist because that was like pulling teeth. That's the best one I heard.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been my field day experiences, and then of course last year we had a great turnout, and it's just great fun, and we keep making it better every year. The food gets better every year. I mean, the quarter-pound hot dogs. Don't get me wrong, Paul. Those are something to enjoy, but like you said last week, some of the best pork shoulder I've ever had, and the deviled eggs between I think it was Brian brought some, and then Ben brought some. Oh man, I haven't eaten so many deviled eggs, and it was a great time. So I think I've gone on long enough here. So back to net control.
All right, Justin. Boy, what a great summary, and certainly thanks for sharing those pictures. I mean, we all know pictures are worth 1,000 words, and seeing kind of the timeline of your first field day and your experience with those is just really, really cool. And as you can tell, we have a beautiful, beautiful campsite that we end up doing this at. And certainly, if you get tired of radio, that's okay. There are miles and miles of hiking trails. If you're a trout, if you're into trout fishing, but there's a stock pond within a very, very short walking distance. Usually when I camp at this campsite, besides a field day, that's a challenge that I had to my kids is we got to go catch lunch. So certainly if you're into fishing, plenty of fishing to do there. So don't let if radio gets boring, if by chance radio gets boring, you have an opportunity to go walk off maybe some of those really elaborate meals that we have. So if you leave field day hungry, there's something wrong with you for sure. I mean, some of that food is so good, it's like your lips are fighting each other. It's good stuff for sure. Next, we're going to throw it over to, let's see here. Wayne, have we gone to you yet?
Yeah, I threw in a little bit there on the last one, but
Yep.
Here, let me get up on the screen. All right, hey guys, and yeah, I know it's the very first field day that we went to. It was me and my son, and we had played a lot of satellite. So we ended up bringing out one of the Arrow satellites, satellite antennas, and a Yaesu FT 857D, if I remember correctly, and a computer to do the Doppler shift. And I think we only ended up getting maybe one QSO during field day, just taking it the satellites only pass over every so many hours on every day. But it was nice to get the kids out, to get my son out there, get him on HF, get myself on HF, and really understand, exactly how to run a contest. And as I said earlier, I sat down with Justin and ended up having him work me in. And then, that was our first field day. And then last year when we went to field day, it was a little bit colder. It was probably actually
a little
colder
bit
during.
How about a lot colder?
Yeah, I mean, poor John almost died.
How cold was it?
No, it was 30 degrees. Yeah, last year was definitely interesting. It even snowed. Up at the Colorado campground. But yeah, and then another thing that we learned is don't leave empty Starbucks cups out because cubs like to check those out at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And we got woken up by some bears. That was interesting. But beyond that, we had our stations in a tent. It was so cold enough that we had tarps up around the tent to block the cold air. We also went into Walmart and picked up some propane heaters to put in the tents for where the radios were. But yeah, and we still ended up getting 1,000 contacts, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, we were
1,200.
Yeah, I think we were a little over 1,200 last year.
Yeah, and I think the latest that we had the latest we had a station running, I think was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning sideband station, and I think we had an FT8 station running for maybe a couple even hours even longer. But yeah, it's always a good time. You have your people that come up and spend the whole time up there, and then you have your people that come up on Saturday and spend the day up there. You know, whatever you want to do, you know, feel free to come up. It's a lot of fun. Bring the family, bring the kids, bring the wife. There's definitely a lot of stuff to be involved with, and lots of stuff to do.
Boy, just a great summary there, Wayne. Certainly appreciate you sharing that with us. Yeah, like you said, last year we had all 4 seasons in one field day, which was pretty remarkable for
in one afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
At night, yeah.
I noticed that a couple other guests have popped in. I want to welcome John N4SJW and Patrick AI8C. So John, we'll kick it over to you. Maybe you can share with us what your very first field day experience was like as a ham, and second, what was your first field day experience like with the PRA?
Oh God. Well, the first real field day, I was up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
And I had been in Texas for a while, and I had been out of ham radio for almost a decade. And I joined the Orange County group, and they said, well, John, why don't you do the overnight thing? And it's like, okay. And I hadn't done Morse code, and I can't remember. And my buddy said, when we saw you like at 6 o'clock in the morning, you looked like this demon. You had this wild-eyed look, and you were just banging on that key. And it was like, I just fell in love with that ham radio all over again. I've been working hard here. I guess our first field day here, it was at the church, and remember the crabby old guy with the dog? But the tailgate party and the brats and all that stuff, food is essential to a good field day. And anyone listening tonight, if you're new to field day, just come out. You're going to have a great time, and it gives you a chance to play with stuff with a lot of people around, and it's always going to be fun. Now, my saga was the last 2 field days up at Colorado Campground. I did the VHF UHF station. In those two field day jobs, and I was real proud of myself. I had this really nice mast made out of PVC, and you probably remember that. And it takes me about an hour to get up and down again. I talked to one person, N0KG.
He was at the field day site.
Oh yeah, he was across the street in his trailer.
Didn't you get that all set up, and then there was
man,
you put it all away? I don't know. That was fun.
Hey John, what band were you on, John?
Sideband 2 meters and 440. I had all.
What band did you talk to Ray on?
6 meters. It was 6. So we got 1 6-meter contact.
Okay, all right.
But I think what I'm going to do this year, I'm going to bring up my 7100. And we can figure it out when we get there. I'm coming up Thursday, and you will not see me in a tent ever again. And I've got this nice 17-foot fiberglass casita trailer. In fact, tomorrow I'm putting the transmission cooler on so I can pull this thing up there. But it's got a heater, it's got a gas heater, so I'm going to be happy. The only other thing I would say to any newcomers is stay away from the back of Jeff's truck. And I'll just leave the rest to your imagination. I hear there's pictures, but I'm not even going to look at them. Other field day stuff, I think the real fun thing about field day is, you can't go wrong. I mean, if you've never done this before, it's like, just get in there. It's so much fun. And I remember the first Colorado Campground one, we were starting off, Dan said, John, here, you sit here and you start logging, right? And like, this guy's in New Jersey mode, just banging stuff out. I'd never even worked with N1 and M before. So like, what buttons am I? Like, okay. And it was lots of fun. So looking forward to it. It just, if anyone has any questions at all, or even if you just come up for a couple hours, just put it in your calendar, and you have lots of fun. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, John, that's good stuff for sure. And boy, just some great insight. And it's amazing just what you experienced back in North Carolina, kind of similar to our first field day together, which was, here's the CW key, go. It's John, come here, you need to log, let's go and let's do this. So it was, kind of like riding a bike for you, I'm sure. Next here in the studio is Patrick, AI8C. So Patrick, good evening. Glad you're here. Maybe you can talk about a little bit about your first field day experience as a ham radio operator, and also give some insight as to what people can expect at a PRA field day.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. First time talking, so I want to make sure. Well, my first field day was with the Parker Radio Association, and God, Dan can correct me, but what was that, 5 years ago, maybe? 5 years ago?
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, 6, yeah, in the big field by the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, that grumpy old guy with the dog. Traumatized the guy's dog so much his dog couldn't go to the bathroom, so I don't know. And then the lady that was digging up something somewhere in the apartment complex, and she kept dumping it in the field and staring at us because she thought we were going to rat around or something. I don't know. So yeah, that was my first field day. Just in the canopies, in the open field, in the portalette or bathroom or whatever that was like a mile away, or that's what it felt like. It was great times though. We stayed up pretty late that first year, I want to say.
Yeah.
And, Dan schooled us, and back then we had a guy, an old timer, that when he did CW, it sounded like a machine gun going off. I forget his name, and I don't know if he's still around or not, but that was pretty impressive. I had never seen CW since that like that guy did. It was just amazing. He could have a conversation with 3 people at the same time and rattle off CW. It was a really amazing thing, and it kept me coming back for the additional field days. Going up to the campground, I think, was a step up in the world, if you want to put it that way. We're a lot more autonomous up there at the campground. They can be as sociable or unsociable as you want to be. You can hang out at your campsite. You can wander around, do some radio, and get some things logged for the club there. You can help put up antennas. You can help eat food.
Wear whatever kind of pajamas you want to.
Yeah, you can wear your jammies and your t-shirt. And I'm going to say, last year I was very happy that I brought up my battery heated jacket, because I didn't realize we were going to get snow, hail, thunder, or whatever the heck it was we ended up with out there. Especially after we had the thunderstorm run through and it cleared up blue skies, and Dan's like, well, that's not so bad. And then like 2 hours later, it was hailing. And yeah, that was interesting. I'm hoping we're not going to have that again this year, but just goes to show you never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
Great food, great people, good times. Bring your own snacks, bring your own stuff if you want your own things, and God knows what Jeff's going to bring in a bottle. So there's always that if you need to burn some hair off of your chest or something. I don't think it grows it. I think it burns it off. And John, thank God you're not laying on the ground again this year, because we thought we were going to have to take you in. That was, and I absolutely was not going to warm your feet for you. So,
Nor was I.
Yeah, but that's the way I look at it, guys.
I mean, wasn't your 80-year-old mother-in-law camping out there too?
Yeah,
right.
My 84-year-old mother-in-law was camping, and she did fine. She didn't have any concerns at all, and was wanting to know here a couple weeks ago if she was invited back to field day. I told her.
Did you tell her that this year she's got to put antennas up?
Yeah.
Right.
Come on back.
I think she fared better than John did. I don't, I don't know why or how, but I think she fared a little better than John. So we'll see.
Yeah, but the thing I get from it is it's what you make out of it, right? So you come, you play a little radio. You can play a little on your own radio if you want to. Try some other people's radios if you want to. You can go having never really done FT8, and by midnight you're exhausted and your hand hurts, and you hand it off to somebody else because you've been doing FT8 for 5 hours. Try to leave the door cracked open in Ray's trailer if you can. I'm just saying. So, that was a really good time. And, you eat whatever food you want to eat and you drink whatever drinks you want to drink and hang out by the campfire. Hopefully we can have a campfire.
Were his ears burning? He just joined after you said
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Ray.
I dredged Ray up. Poor Ray.
Yeah, we were talking about you.
I just happened to look at my phone. I'm like, oh crap, there's a
But
thing
to
going on.
me, I think I've learned more about radios and doing antennas and things of that nature as a ham radio operator at field days than I've ever learned doing anything else. I learned a little bit at my own house, but the majority of what I picked up has really been at field day because you get to see so many different antennas, different types of operators, different radios, and the radios that are there aren't just the club radios. It's like almost everybody brings some other kind of radio. So whether it's a UHF, VHF, or some kind of off-the-wall HF setup, or Justin out there with a couple of loops and God knows what else he has connected to it, and Ray is the same way. But you learn from it, and it gives you ideas for things you want to do down the road. So that's me. I'm going to be there. I'm not sure. I'm going to try maybe to come up Thursday. I'm not sure if that'll work, but I'll definitely be out there early on Friday.
Excellent. Well, Patrick, thanks for that update. Really, really good stuff there for sure. And, just some great insight that you had as well. And I think the biggest thing that you really honed in on was you get to experience a lot of different setups, how people set up antennas, how people set up their radios, what type of batteries people are using. Great healthy discussions on vertical antennas, wire antennas, end feds, dipoles, beams. I mean, you name it. We certainly covered at field day for sure. Ray,
before we get to Ray, before we get to Ray, it's worth mentioning too. This year at field day, we're going to have the Patriot VE group there doing an extra exam before the question pool changes. So that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for anyone who's looking to upgrade to extra. If you can study, let's just say you're a general and your call sign rhymes with keg of beer, and you have all the stuff, and they're literally doing a test for your extra exam that's based on everything that you've got that you could study for. And just saying, it might be just for you. So with that, I think no pressure. And Ray, I already told one story about you. I shared some pictures from the first field day when you were working there with Dave, and I remember exactly what you said. You said loud and proud in Colorado, and we were talking about the piercing audio reports and things like that for you guys.
Loud and proud.
Let's not forget the piercing audio from a couple of years ago when Paul decided he was ready to go and is literally macheting the guy wire for the antenna as we're getting our last QSO, and the old guy's going, "What are you running there? That's some piercing audio."
That's right.
The guy says it, we get him this confirmation, and the antenna falls out of the sky.
Well, Ray, without further ado, not only being fashionably late is really cool, but boy, you got put under the spotlight pretty quick. So here's kind of what we're doing tonight. We're talking about maybe what your very first field day was like as a ham radio operator, whether that was with the PRA or not, and then also give some insight as to what people who maybe this is their first Parker Radio Association field day, what they can expect for the event. So, Ray, we'll throw it over to you.
Okay. Well, hey, yeah. Sorry I'm late. I was writing a text wall. You're on it, so read it later. So my first field day was with all you guys. I've really only been a ham a couple of years, so it was a blast. I got out there. I didn't know what to expect. I threw whatever junk I had that resembled a wire or a battery in my truck and drove out to the campground to meet everybody. I only had a tent that year, so I didn't have the
Didn't you have that weird thing in the back of your truck? That weird tent thing in the back of the truck? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like sleeping on the ground, but I'll sleep in my truck. Tell you about the weekend I lived in a Ford LTD once, but at any rate, it wasn't even my Ford LTD; it was somebody else's. But no, I got out there and Justin had his I think it was a KX2 Might have been an 817. I think it was a KX2, and your loop set up on the bench.
Yeah, I showed the pictures earlier.
Yeah, and I'm like, ooh, loop antennas. And since then, I'm like, we got to make a loop out of anything. If I find 3 pieces of metal laying around, it looks like a loop antenna to me. And I think about Justin on the bench, with just 5 watts in this little loop making contacts. Like, holy cow! You don't need a gigantic station to get out there and talk to somebody. So Justin, you're an inspiration, sir. But on that note, every field day I've been to, I guess it was kind of like what Patrick was talking about when I got here. You always learn something from somebody, and being able to exchange ideas, learn stuff. I worked my first pile up thanks to Dan. He got that pile up all built, and he's like, "I'm done," because you'd been running the radio for I don't know how long. So you're like, "Here, you do it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what do I do with this thing?" And yeah, I got on there, and next thing you know, 18 beers later, I was telling people they were loud and proud in 2 Alpha, Colorado. So yeah, it's and it's gotten to the point now. I've said this a few times, and people might think I'm half joking, but I really truly believe field day is better than Christmas. It's much more enjoyable to me. I mean, it's the weather's better, it costs less. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's Ray. That's perfect insight. And I think what's important is, you came up for your first field day, and it's like, I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know if this is, am I going to have fun? Who am I going to know? What am I going to run into? And I think that's the really cool part behind the PRA, because we'll welcome you with open arms, kind of get you into the routine. Hey, here's how things are going. And then we go, here, your turn.
Yep.
and get you right into the deep end. And that's the neat part too behind field day, is that you can't screw anything up. That's the cool part. It's
Right.
like the biggest non-contest contest there is. So even if there's a logbook screw up, we can fix it. It's not a problem. And I've been known to butcher a few call signs going into the logbook, and that's okay. We end up fixing it. So good boy, Ray. Great insight for sure. Paul, AC5S. So maybe you can tell us what your first field day experience was like, and what people should expect at their first PRA field day.
Well, Dan, my first field day experience was with the Tulsa Repeater Organization in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at 15th and Yale, if you're familiar with Tulsa. And it really was not a super good experience. They were so unorganized. It was just one problem after another. They even worked the entire field day on an antenna that was a dead short. And we would never do that, right?
No, that would never happen with us.
That would never happen with us, right?
Although it did.
Yeah. I wondered that whole year why we were having so much trouble with that antenna over there in the parking lot. But we fixed it. We fixed it before we left, so that was good. The PRA does a fantastic job with field day. And I will tell you from a little different perspective, you don't see me on the air hardly at all. I pretty much come out for everything else. Getting on the air is fun, but the food and the logging, helping people log and
Haven't you worked 80-meter nets on field day?
Yeah, I mean, the radio piece is just not number one on my list, but it is for a lot of people, and that's what field day is all about. So definitely it's fantastic. But the food is good. The camaraderie is great. I remember that particular moment in time that Elizabeth mentioned when I was trying to get her on the air. And, but even though she was a little intimidated, I'll tell you what, last year, she was just rocking. She was absolutely rocking and doing a great job. And it's all about learning too. We talk about Dan and how good he is, and he is. He's very, very good. And we all want to kind of emulate Dan in terms of the speed and the verbiage and the language and the old man this and the old man that. But you know, you don't have to have those skill sets to get on the air either. And Dan's a lot of fun to watch, and we learn from watching people like Dan. We learn from watching Wayne and his son, and we learn from John. When you're freezing to death, you got to go back to the Boy Scout motto: "Be prepared." Right? But that was good. I mean, we learned a little bit about everything, and I would never admit this to anybody, and I certainly would never admit it to John, but I was cold too a few times that night. So that was a challenging weather situation last year. Now I have it on good faith that we're going to have excellent weather this year. So you definitely want to come out and bring your radios, bring your antennas, use our radios, use the PRA's antennas. And I'll tell you what, another little secret, I don't usually bring any radios or antennas. I bring food, and I bring a chair to sit in, and I bring some stories to tell. But you usually don't find an HF rig in my vehicle, or certainly sometimes I don't even get it out. Right? There's just so much going on, and I definitely agree with Dan. Bring a fishing pole if you like to fish a little bit, because it's an absolute fantastic time. And I'll just mention one other person, Stan, N0KKY, that came up last year, and he wasn't there a long time. But man, he listened and he learned and he asked questions, and I think he got on the radio. I think he got on the air, but I'm not 100% sure if he did. But he was taking notes and mental notes, and I think he was writing stuff down. And what a fantastic event for Stan, who is getting back into amateur radio after many, many years. And if you could see his station now, he has a fantastic station. He does a great job on HF. And I think Stan will tell you, and I don't even know if Stan's here tonight, but I think Stan will tell you that a lot of what he knows and is able to do today, he learned from a bunch of people like Justin and other people, and John at Field Day last year. So come on out. We have a great time, and if you want to get on the radio, we'll get on the radio. If you want to just sit by the fire and make s'mores, sit by the fire and make s'mores. That's perfectly okay. And if you want to follow me down the lake, that's where I'll be part of the time. I guarantee you that. So anyway, that's it. If people have questions, send them in on the YouTube, and we'll answer as many as we can online. And hey, it's coming up here in just a few weeks, so back to net control.
All right, Paul. Thanks. Boy, some great insight for sure. And one of the questions that did come up in the chat room was a question about social distancing this year. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, Dan, the Field Day Committee has been meeting on this particular topic almost every week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And as you know, a lot of things have changed. And we don't know exactly where we're going to be at the end of June, but we can start to get an idea that we're going to have people that come to Field Day that are going to be a little nervous and are going to want to observe some social distancing. And for those people, we are absolutely 100% supportive of that. We also, those of you that want to wear a mask and want to take a little extra precaution in that regard, absolutely, positively, you should do that as well. We have been, it was donated to us 4 gallons of disinfectant. And we're going to be cleaning headsets, microphones, radios, chairs, anything at the operating positions. We're going to clean every time we change operators and every time we change loggers. This will be part of our safety presentation that Tom does on Saturday morning. And we'll just make sure that everyone knows where the disinfectant is, where the wipes are, where the hand cleaner is. And we're going to take a little extra time this year to make sure that we do some of those things that we probably would have done anyway. I noticed last year a couple people were wiping down microphones with hand cleaner and wipes. That was a year before COVID-19, right? But they were still doing that. And we're going to also provide dinner Saturday night by individuals that have gone through some additional training with regard to food preparation and serving of the food. So you can be assured that those people that are going to be preparing the food for Saturday night and serving the food are going to be taking extra precautions in that area as well. We are not doing potluck this year. You do not need to bring any food up to serve at our Saturday night dinner. And that's because we're planning to have a little better practice with regard to that. So by all means, if you're nervous or if you're not feeling well or you haven't felt well or you've been around somebody that has COVID-19, we would ask you not to come up to field day. That's probably doesn't need to be said, but we'll say it anyway. But when you do come up, feel free to take whatever precautions you feel comfortable with, because I think most people are going to. I think most people are going to practice some social distancing. And I think probably in the operating tents, some people are going to wear masks, which I think can be done with some of our equipment. But come up and join us. I think we're going to have a very safe field day. Sorry for the long answer there, Dan, but
No,
I
that's
wanted to make
perfect.
sure everybody got that information.
Boy, Paul, you couldn't have said it any better. So, obviously with everything going on, I have to give a round of applause, everyone, to the field day committee, because not only does it take a lot of work and effort in coordinating all the activities, radios, campsites, coax, antennas, food, beverages, snacks, generators, who's bringing what, paper plates, utensils, things like that. But they've also had to put together a contingency plan of, if the campsite doesn't open up, what do we do? And what preparations do we have to do, like Paul highlighted, for food preparation? What are some suggestions? So a tremendous round of applause to the field day coordinator chairman, Brent, KB4SMK. Just a great job in orchestrating that, and every member of the field day committee. They've just done a fantastic job here over the last couple months, and not only getting their hands wrapped around this whole COVID-19 situation, but boy, they have a rock solid plan that's put together for sure. So
Dan, do you mind if I mention the other members real quick?
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge those people because they've worked really hard. Tom Ni0L, who has put together our survey and is doing a lot in the background. Tom's been fantastic. Our Randy, K0TNG, and Doug, K0ATP, and myself. So it's a fairly small group, but thank you for those nice comments, because we have been working very hard not only to make sure this comes off, but if we can't go to the campground at Woodland Park, where can we go? So we do have those backup plans as well, and so I just want to thank everybody on the committee, especially Brent, our chairman, who's done a fantastic job. So thanks, Brent.
No, you're welcome, Paul. No, thank you guys for just a bang up job, and again, hats off to each and every one of you on that. Well, I'll go back to right around 1993. That was my very first field day. I lived in a little small New Jersey suburb outside of Philadelphia called Cherry Hill, and got hooked up with a buddy of mine who was part of the Office of Emergency Management for this little town called Cherry Hill in southern New Jersey. And I've known a little bit about ham radio, but he said, "Hey, we're doing field day," which, what's field day? So went out, and the OEM group actually had a very old vintage, probably 1974 bus that was repainted, repurposed, and jammed a lot of radio equipment in there, plus a bunch of MREs and things like that. And it was like, okay, what are we getting into? And we went out into some open green space. And believe it or not, there's still some open green space in southern New Jersey. They ended up dragging this this mid-70s bus out into the middle of this field, and started setting up ham radio equipment, antennas. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. We'll do this for a few hours. And, you know, we started setting up around lunchtime. We got on the air. We were messing around a little bit with different antennas and different radios and setups. And by the time I looked down, I'm like, boy, it's 10 o'clock at night. It's getting late. And I said, what time do you guys usually wrap up? And they go, about 12 noon tomorrow. What? And so they said, look, we're us veterans. We set everything up. You're the new guy. You got to operate all night. And I had never operated field day, didn't have my ticket, nothing. And they said, oh no, here's, you know, kind of like Ray said, we're going to put a piece of paper in front of you. And that was before computer logging. So there was no computer logging. It was all handwritten logging. And boy, that got kind of confusing, especially when you had duplicate contacts. So, you know, you go through pages and pages of contacts, and you go to work somebody and they go, oh, we already worked. And it's like, how do you know that when you're doing a paper log? So operated most of the night, which I thought was pretty cool. Pretty much had the band myself. And at that time, I can still remember the call sign of the extra who was there. He was the trustee of the club. His call sign was Kilo Fox 2 Echo Kilo. And I, you know, all this time later, you still remember that. So that was my first field day back in the early 90s in southern New Jersey. And I thought that, boy, that was pretty cool to set up and do that. And then each year after that, after a couple more friends and I, we got our licenses, what we would do is we would field day hop. So we would start off with one group, help them set up their antennas and stations, and then say, hey, cool, we'll circle back around. We go to another field day station, help them with antennas and stations set up, operate there a little bit, go to the third station. And we just did a circuit all night, which was kind of cool as well. So kind of did that all the way through high school. I don't know how much more I can add as far as what to expect in a PRA field day experience, but I'll tell you this, you're going to have an absolute blast, because if radio doesn't intrigue you, like Elizabeth talked about, the campfire, the conversations, like Paul mentioned, the fishing, the hiking, you know, there may be some adult beverages that are typically involved in field day. As we've learned over the years,
just a couple.
Yeah,
just a couple.
and
Right.
everybody has fun, which is really cool. And I want to share some pictures from last year, so I'm going to see if I can get this going here, and if it's going to let me present. Let's see. I want to present a screen, and I am going to present this screen. Okay, so now I got this all figured out. So this was field day last year, and if you can tell by this picture, this was John's, I think it was his VHF UHF 6 meters setup.
Yeah, 2 and 6. Yeah.
Yeah, John. He was
Stacked
a man
Omni
with that.
angles. Look at that.
Yeah, I got some rare DX, N0 KG with it.
But that was very impressive. I just want to say that was an
Yeah.
impressive setup.
And there was our 20 meter and 40 meter 4 BTV vertical with the appropriate number of radials. Always important to have radials on your vertical antenna, by the way.
Why
The
is
chow
that?
line.
Why is that?
Why is that? Boy, that could be an
Elmer Night. I mean, Elmer
of
Night's here.
itself. Come to field day and we'll teach you why. The chow line, I mean, you know it's good food when there's like, what, 15, 20 people in line ready to fill their plates. Pretty remarkable. We'll show some of that. Hey, there's Wayne. He's actually operating one of the stations. Looks like he's operating the FT 991A, which is really cool. And in the background is Elizabeth with her husband John. They're back there also operating. It looks like they were on the 7300. So pretty cool setup there for sure. This was actually, as rudimentary as a setup as this looks like, it was actually a pretty important setup, particularly when the rain and the hail came. It was not only pretty watertight, but boy, it kept the hailstones away for sure. Hey, at our next PRA monthly meeting in June, so this is right before Field Day, we'll actually do a live demonstration of N1MM logging. So this is the logging system that we use. The areas that you really just have to pay attention to are right here. This is where you're going to enter all the information. So here is the station that you work. So our last station that we worked was Kilo 6 Hotel Sierra, and he was a 3A. So we'll put the class in there as 3A, and his section, which was SV. I'm trying to remember what SV was. San Joaquin. No, that SJV is San Joaquin Valley. So I'll remember that at some point. But it looks like that was John N4SJW that worked him on 6 meters. So John, there's another 6 meter contact that you made that you didn't know about.
That was the only one, though, I think. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Ray was the year before that. All right. So I did get 2. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So pretty cool setup there. But if you have a chance, download N1MM and mess around with it. It's a really, really cool, very simple program, but also has some pretty robust features and capabilities, which we'll go over. Here's another shot of the operating positions with a couple different operators lined up. Looks like a couple of them are taking a break, which was probably well-deserved with the number of pileups that we were working. And there's Tom in I0L as the raindrops started falling on his head. He broke out the old trusty blue umbrella and was pretty well set for all things that were about to happen in the next few hours. And there he is earlier in the day getting things set up with some antennas and guy wires and antenna launchers and things like that.
That's safety orientation.
Oh, was that the safety orientation?
Yes, it was.
All right. Well, there you go. He was pretty much set with the safety orientation. That's an important part of Field Day because, number one, we want to have a safe environment. Number one, there's a fair amount of electricity and power that's being used. We have gasoline that's being used. So you really have to know your surroundings, not only with what we're operating with and the things that we're using, but the things that you really don't want to find out about at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning are the trip hazards that could be sitting around. So the safety meeting's important. Hey, there's Wayne again and Justin in the background, and Heather's there as well. They're working probably a massive pile up there on the 991A.
And there's Cameron. He just borrowed that radio and brought it back. Had a great time using it.
Yeah. So yeah, Cameron did a great job, and that's the cool part about the PRA equipment is that if you're a member of the PRA, you have the opportunity to take some of the HF equipment out on loan. So after Field Day, I think that list is going to grow pretty quickly as far as those that want to give the loaner equipment a try. And that's why it's there. We want it out. We want it used. We want it on the air. We don't want it collecting dust. So Justin, if you have any questions, Justin can obviously jump in and fill in some of the details on what takes place with the loaner equipment. There's another shot of some of the PRA folks getting ready. Looks like the smoker was going pretty well. We had some serious pork shoulder that was going. And I'll tell you what, like I said before, if you leave Field Day hungry, there's something wrong with you. There are a couple more guys here that are working a pretty good pile up. A couple members there. It looks like they're operating on the 7300, and that is obviously before the rain started coming down. It started getting chilly, as you can see. They had their windbreaker. So even though it's the end of June, be prepared. We went from 70-degree weather down to 30-degree-ish weather, maybe a little bit colder on Sunday morning. So make sure you plan accordingly. Here's kind of a longer angle shot of some of the setup that we have. So right here we have some food preparation. A lot of our beverages were here with some of the water, plenty of water, which will be there. And then the famous N0KEG trailer where our digital operations took place. Hey, there's John in 4SJW working some serious magic on 6 meters, which was good. So it looks like he was filling up the logbook there pretty well. And we know those folks again. There's Wayne in the background, always giving a thumbs up. Things were going pretty good for field day, especially when we have over 1,200 QSOs in the log. Hey, there's a good shot of John's setup that he had for both VHF, UHF, and a little bit of 6 meter action. And thank goodness he brought his trusty step ladder with him, because that was mighty impressive, John, watching you orchestrate that. But that was
took a lot of hams to get that up and working. But yeah, thanks everyone.
Hey, there's Terry, WB3EVZ. He's the co-chair of the Elmering Committee. He's enjoying a frosty cold adult beverage there. I don't think that's root beer, but probably one of the several different varieties of IPAs that found their way to field day. Hey, there's Tom preparing a really cool, I think that was lasagna that he had, if my memory serves me right. And he was trying a new camping oven that he had purchased. So that was pretty good there for sure. And there's the other side of the chow line. Again, when you have 20, 25 people lined up to get food, you know your lips are going to be fighting, because it's going to be some good stuff for sure. Hey, great story there. There's Justin, AE2L. Justin, you want to share a little bit of what's going on here in that picture?
Yes, that's funny. You know, I camped at the same camp spot 2 years in a row. I think it was campsite 25. And I remember I'd set my tent up like way back in the corner so I could be away, didn't wake anyone up with the snoring, you know. And that's a little Kestrel D2 temperature sensor. And I remember bringing it to field day, and then I got home and I went, oh man, you know, I must have left it on the tree by where my car was. And anyway, Paul even went back and looked for me. I think he went camp there like a week after that, and it's like, nope, wasn't there. So I had the same camp spot last year. I'm setting up my tent, and I look at the tree, and lo and behold, it's still there from the year before. And so it had been there for the whole year. And it's like, you know, so that means no one had ever camped that far back or hadn't seen it or whatever. But yeah, my new one is red. So now I have 2 data loggers. So that's great. It's a Bluetooth. You can log in with the app and see the weather overnight and stuff like that. So now I have 2 data loggers, because I bought a replacement for that one. But I was very happier than a guy who saved a bunch of money switching to Geico there. So.
No, very, very cool. Well, there we are, pretty well prepared for what Mother Nature was bound to bring us last year at Field Day. And boy, great job with the group, and you know, not only getting the tarp set up, but some campsite engineering and getting those tents combined. It looked pretty good. There's a close up of John's 7100 operating on 6 meter sideband. Sure, he was making a mess of contacts there. And there we go. We got the old battery box coming in as well, with some power poles. And there's Alan carrying that hefty lug of battery power into the next
doing the battery
station. What's that?
I said doing the good old battery swap out when the radios started going.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's Tom kind of going over some issues with the safety briefing, and obviously there was something serious that was being talked about, because Brent looks like he is shocked by what Tom is presenting. But nonetheless, it was a very, very safe field day. Hey, we're talking about that brown liquor that ends up showing up every once in a while. We'll keep moving from there.
There was actually a story there, by the way. So that for those of you who don't know, last year I moved from one side of Castle Rock to the other, and so I needed a realtor very quick. So I remember thinking about Ray and thinking like, hey, your wife's a realtor, right? And he said, yeah, she's pretty good. So anyway, she facilitated me buying and selling a house, and as a very good client, Ray was a very good husband to a realtor, and brought me up the present for being a very good client. And so we all shared that and enjoyed it. And I think there's a picture that probably didn't make it to the website of John.
Oh no, it made it.
Oh, it did. Okay, great. So anyway, but yes, that was me just sampling it before it disappeared quickly. But I think we probably won't have too much of the passing the bottle this year with the COVID-19. You know.
I'll bring you your own bottle this year. I think it should be a tradition.
Well, here's another shot of the chow line, and yours truly giving a thumbs up on some scrumptious delicacies that we got to partake in. Hey, there's John. John sneaking
No, that's
in.
not me. That's my evil twin.
You were out, man. You were out.
And for SJS, right?
Yeah.
He didn't sleep. He didn't sleep at all.
So, you know, John put a lot of energy into busting the 6 meter pileups. And, you know, when you're working a pileup on 6 meters, it's exhausting. You got to take a nap in between. So
No, that was after the meal, I think, and after hanging out in Jeff's distillery and brewery. But that's, you know, but it was by the fire, so it wasn't too bad.
there you go. Hey, wait a minute. We were talking about a good meal. Boy, there's one of those quarter-pound hot dogs that are getting devoured. Hey, one of the really cool things that we had set up, we had a separate Raspberry Pi that was linked into our logging software, and it was tracking all of the sections that we had worked. So we're only a few hours into this, but you can see all the different sections that we were working throughout the country during field day, and that was pretty cool. And maybe we can do that again this year.
Yeah,
Hey,
I was actually going to bring that up, Dan. That was Elizabeth's husband that wrote that, KE0PCI.
Hey, Elizabeth, can we get John to do that again this year?
I will recruit him, and I'm sure he'll be happy to
I'm sure
do
he
that.
still has the software.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. Hey, there's Patrick, AI8C. He is in the N0KEG mobile shack. And you can see in the background, he's working some, looks like FT8. And boy, the FT8 got us a lot of contacts and a lot of points, which was really cool. This is the safety briefing, by the way. So this is when the weather was absolutely perfect, maybe about 65 degrees or so. Had some great insights on all things related to safety there. There's Stan, N0KKY, showing off his new FT2D. And Paul shared the story about Stan coming to field day after a little hiatus of being out of ham radio. And boy, he asked a lot of questions. We gave him a lot of help with that FT2D. Got him on the air, not only on his handheld, but also on HF as well. So Stan is a very, very active member with us today. Hey, there's Justin looking really serious, working a pretty good pile up. And actually that was I think this was the inaugural test on HF of the 991A. And Justin putting it through, getting some good audio reports, and, you know, setting up all the notch filtering and the noise blanking and things like that. Hey, there's our mascot. There's Ruby. Ruby is a wonderful, wonderful addition at field day. She is absolutely the mascot of the PRA. She does a great job at field day, and considering all the rain and kind of not so nice weather that we had little glimpses of sunshine. Well, Ruby took this as an opportunity to peek her head out from the shelter and soak in some sunlight. So good to see Ruby there. There's Brent's better half. She's there knocking some of the water off the top of the canopy that we had there. So that was after a pretty good afternoon thunderstorm that we had last year. And when things start raining and raining hard, your socks get wet once in a while. So I thought it was a good opportunity to get the old socks onto a stick that I found out from that came off a tree, and no better way to warm up the socks than to put them over the campfire and get them nice and toasty. And there's the chow line again. There's Paul giving the morning safety briefing. So we have a very short, succinct briefing each morning just to go over any sort of safety issues that we got to cover in the day. There's Tom working on some of the guy wires on the antennas, which was pretty cool. There's John's setup that we were talking about with the Raspberry Pi. So what's really neat is that this Raspberry Pi image will actually take pictures from previous field days, ties it in, but then it also has a scrolling marquee down at the bottom. So we know who the last QSO was, what their section was, and what class they were in. So very, very cool setup that John does for that. And it's kind of nice too. So if you end up going for a hike or you're going fishing and you want to come back and say, hey, where are we at? This is a great way to kind of look at our active scoreboard. There's John in 4SJW on 6 meters, operating a little bit of CW for sure, and it looks like he's got a few in the log there, which is good stuff for sure. Hey, there's Jeff AB0L. He's helping out and getting some of the antennas set up and strung up into the trees. There's the FT991A, one of the really cool radios that we picked up a couple years ago. Everybody, if you're interested in the 991A, really great radio, kind of a shack in a box. You'll have an opportunity at field day to give it a try. Hey, and even non-radio related, the conversation and the camaraderie around the campfire, maybe a couple extra quarter-pound dogs or brats, really good stuff that's happening there, that's going on with the cookout. And again, if you leave field day hungry, you really missed out. Another great shot there of the 7300, as well as the one of the logging computers that we have set up. So we'll be going over the N1MM software next month. Here's a great picture of the gang getting themselves all warmed up after setting up those antennas and getting the rigs set up. As the temperature started dropping, you got to have that beverage to get the blood warmed back up. So there they are, getting all set up and warmed up and ready to make a boatload of contacts. And there's John again working his 7100 and getting some really good QSOs in the log. There's Wayne and Tom. Looks like this was at breakfast the following morning, because I can remember we were serving some of those breakfast biscuits that morning. Hey, there we go. Now, if that doesn't make your lips want to fight each other, nothing will. There is the pork shoulder, some really good smoked pork shoulder that I think we smoked those for, about 12 or 13 hours or so. I mean, it was certainly up there.
I know that the generator was started early and it woke Ray up.
Yes, I distinctly remember the generator starting. It was way too early.
And there's Jeff again. We told Jeff, hold the antenna. We want to tune it. No, we didn't actually do that to him. So that's why he's got a big smile on his face for running about 5 watts into that antenna. No, we didn't do that. Just kidding, everyone. And there we are back to where we started. So kind of what to expect at a PRA field day. That is it right there. So lots of good stuff for sure. And boy, I'll tell you what, if you have any interest in ham radio whatsoever, or maybe you're getting drug along to this, maybe by a family member or your husband or your wife or whatever the case is, it's what you make of it. It's a really great event, and I think that everyone here that presented tonight all has the same message. I think it's not only the art and the practice of communicating, setting up communications equipment, obviously in less than ideal conditions, but I think more than anything else, like Elizabeth said earlier, it's a family. And boy, we had some really great conversations. I think I enjoyed, even though it was great to hit 1,200 QSOs, sitting around the campfire and laughing and telling jokes and sharing stories was pretty important as well. So really good stuff there for sure. Well, I'm going to kick it around the horn to a few people to see if there's any last minute comments. Elizabeth, we'll throw it over to you. Any parting words of wisdom for us?
Have fun. Yeah, I was drug along, and then I got there, and this usually happens. I roll my eyes, but then I get there, and it's a great time. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and it's fun camping. It's going to be nice to get out. Yes, be safe. We'll social distance and do what we need to, for everyone's safety and health, but it's going to be great to see everybody, and I look forward to being there.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. Glad you joined us tonight. Patrick, we'll throw it over to you for any parting words of wisdom.
Nope. Looking forward to it and hope to see a lot of people out there. And like everybody said, we'll observe our distancing as appropriate for every individual and have a great time.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, look forward to seeing you at Field Day. Ray, N0KEG. Ray, we'll throw it over to you for a wrap up.
Yeah, it's all been said. It's an awesome time. It's family. I can't say it enough. It is better than Christmas. It is truly better than Christmas. And a quick blurb while I got the mic. We have internet at the Water Tower again, D-Star, and the All-Star UHF machine are back up.
Woohoo! So. Very good. Thanks for that update. Wayne, N0AD in the Aurora, Colorado Studio Mission Control Center. We'll throw it over to you for a wrap-up comment.
Yeah, no, just what I was going to say, get on the air this weekend, next weekend between here and Field Day, practice a little bit. If you'd want, shoot me an email. I'll hop on the air for you and get a nice pile-up started and help you work it out. Always having fun getting on, doing a little contesting. But beyond that, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. As I said, bring the family, bring the kids. Everyone gets to use the Parker Radio Association's call sign and also the privileges of the call sign. So you have the full access to the bands. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to have your license to get on the air at Field Day. It's a whole bunch of fun. Come out and have some fun with us. Let us show you, what we enjoy with the hobby.
Boy, just a great summary there, Wayne. I appreciate you joining us. John, N4SJW, we'll throw it over to you for any closing comments you may have.
Hey, I'm happy. Paul's guaranteeing great weather, and but just in case, lots of layers, mittens, extra socks, and come just with your eyes open and have a great time. So look forward to seeing everyone out there.
All right, John, thanks again. Justin, AE2L, my fellow two-land call sign native, we'll throw it over to you for final comment.
Yeah, we did have a comment about gentleman who knows AE2 Echo. So I always like the AE2s. I've worked a couple of them, so that's always fun. And I think there's a really easy way I could sum up Field Day just kind of in a nutshell. I'm just going to throw this out there because it would make a great slogan. Field Day, where we play radio, have fun, and keep the squelch loose. Something like that, similar order. In any order you want to, as long as you keep the squelch loose, have fun, and play radio.
Boy, you couldn't have said it any better, Justin. That's absolutely it. It's Field Day is what you make of it, and if your thing is helping set up, and boy, we could certainly use the help. If your thing is helping with networking and getting computers to talk to one another, we can certainly use that help. If your thing is operating, or you want to operate CW, Charlie, who's been online tonight, K0MSO, he's offered to do some CW while he's there. So I think that would be pretty awesome for sure. And hey, maybe your thing is logging. Maybe you're a really, really fast, words per minute as far as your keyboard speed. And we certainly need some really good loggers who, again, like you hear me talk about on every net, and being a net control operator, really hone in your listening and copying skills. And boy, Field Day certainly helps with that. Paul, AC5S, we'll throw it over to you for any final comments that you may have.
Well, I have gone out on a limb and guaranteed that the weather would be good this year.
Thank you.
I can guarantee you it is going to rain. So John was absolutely correct. Be prepared and bring some extra coats and layers and things of that nature. Up in Woodland Park, it usually rains every afternoon for a little bit. So there may be a little rain, but the weather's going to be better. We're going to have a fantastic time. Bring your fishing pole. And for those of you that want to take a couple extra days off work, there's probably 8 or 9 of us that are coming up Thursday, right? And there are some first come, first serve campsites available, usually Thursday at noon. So we'll be there from noon on Thursday till noon on Sunday. So you're welcome to come up and join us for the day or for the whole time. And yeah, let's stay safe and play radio. And I'll see everybody up there in about, 4 weeks.
There we go. Thanks, Paul. No, certainly appreciate your insight, and certainly want to thank all the members that are on this call as well. Just it's always cool to reminisce a little bit about what your first field day experience was like and where it was at. And as you can tell, as an organization, we've really grown into field day over the last 6 years. We started off pretty small. You may have heard about the small church field that we had our first couple field days in. And boy, that was a lot of fun. I can remember the very first field day, somebody said, well, I'll bring a tower out. And we went, okay, bring a tower out. Well, we're kind of expecting a tower maybe on a trailer and it would raise itself up. Well, that didn't happen. It was just a tower on a trailer, but we had to take the tower off the trailer, freestand it and guide it off, and said, okay, well, now we have this thing up in the air. How do we get an antenna on it? And I can remember it was Dennis who ended up just saying, well, I'll just climb the tower. Give me the antenna. And Dennis climbed that tower like a squirrel going up a tree. And Dennis got that all set up for us and got us rocking on our very first field day. So again, it's a family event. Bring your significant others, bring the kids, bring the grandkids. It's certainly a family-filled event, and we really look forward to seeing you at our 2020 Field Day in Woodland Park with the Parker Radio Association. Hey, make sure you tune in next month. We'll have some updates coming out. So we were talking a lot about the logging software. So our next meeting is scheduled actually right before Field Day, and we're actually going to use something very similar to this setup, and we're going to have some live N1MM demos that we'll be doing. So you'll get to understand how to operate the software, and it's pretty easy as long as you know how to hit the keyboard, enter the right call signs, and you know where the tab and the enter button are. You're going to be in really good shape with N1MM software. So we'll look forward to seeing you next month as we will give that presentation at our monthly meeting. So that's about it from Parker, Colorado. This is Dan N2SRK. I'm going to say 73, and thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you later.
73.
73.
73.
See you guys. Bye.
74.
75.